Hey there, allow me to introduce myself.
What the fuck? It's a real person. How the fuck did you... Security, help!
I'm some loudmouth on the internet with an opinion.
I can tell. Can you give me your opinion on what the fuck you're doing on my channel?
And I just want to thank Sir Sick for letting me on his channel. Thanks, Sir Sick.
You're welcome? You're not going away, are you? Okay, what do you want?
If I could name a single massive problem with the modern feminist movement...
Not enough fat chicks? No, wait.
It's their bizarre and freakish hatred of the entire concept of due process.
Look, what's the point of calling someone a criminal if that's not going to get them locked up instantly? Eh?
They constantly seem to portray the high burden of proof required for convictions as some kind of evidence of rape culture or some other misogynistic elements.
That's because it is, you monster. I'm so hashtag triggered right now that I'm going to let you witter on for a bit while I go take a dump.
And not simply because innocent people shouldn't be locked up for crimes they didn't commit. When you have a high burden of proof, it does mean that some guilty men will get away with their crimes, but it also makes it far less likely that innocent men will be locked up for crimes they didn't commit. And the system should indeed put the burden of proof on the accuser. And as always, you can always count on a far left oversimplification of issues and shoddy sources from our good old friends at the Young Turks. Good old Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian are here to, of course, sum up the issue in the dumbest way possible, giving us great fodder for internet assholes like us to pick apart. So, take it away.
God damn, that is what we in the industry call a banging shit. Right, let's get on with this, shall we?
Betsy DeVos had a number of sessions with individuals who were either victimized by campus sexual assault or individuals who claimed that they were falsely accused of campus sexual assault. This is all part of her effort to reform Title IX and potentially roll back some of the protections that the Obama administration put in place for students who have been victimized for sexual assault. Now, earlier this week, DeVos angered advocates for victims of sexual assault by agreeing to meet with members of men's rights groups.
You mean misogynist rapists, right? Right?
Which argue that men accused of sexual assault are treated unfairly by colleges under the Obama administration's Title IX guidance. The National Coalition for Men has a history of intimidating victims.
And yes, the Young Turks use BuzzFeed as their only source for this entire story.
I don't know what you mean. It's not like BuzzFeed is a fucking joke at this point. They're a credible news source with totally legit... I can't do it with a straight face. Fuck BuzzFeed.
The only other links the Young Turks provide in their description is a link to their merchandise store.
Buy my mug, buy my mug, buy my mug.
By publishing the identities of women they say made false accusations.
Does it look like I was asking for it? No!
Just a mere allegation of rape, even when no evidence is presented, is enough to get campuses picketed by mobs of raving lunatics.
Now, the other men's rights organization that was there is known as Stop Abusive and Violent Environments, also known as SAVE. And the Southern Poverty Law Center has actually listed them as a misogynistic organization.
And of course, if you go by reactionary leftists, any proclamation by the Southern Poverty Law Center, of course, is absolute gospel.
The Southern Poverty Law Center, a group so bafflingly out of touch that they have Majid Nawaz listed in their anti-Muslim extremist section because he is a Muslim fighting against actual Muslim extremism and created a group that helps people get out of extremist groups. What a fucking monster.
The Southern Poverty Law Center has delivered its commandment from on high that this group is a hate organization, and their authority cannot be questioned.
The hell is wrong with your fingers?
This is the same organization that accused Ayaan Hirsi Ali, a woman who went through female genital mutilations in Somalia, as an anti-Islamic bigot for speaking out against radical Islam. The Southern Poverty Law Center has no clue what they are talking about.
And honestly, I was really curious to see what kind of interaction that they had and what they shared with Betsy DeVos.
Thousands of cock shots, naturally.
Refinery 29 actually had a really great piece where they profiled one of the men who claims that he's been falsely accused of sexual assault.
You mean one of the rapists who's been falsely accused? Because once accused, always a rapist.
By his own frat brothers. And so you don't hear about situations like that often, and he's saying, no, I actually don't want you guys to get rid of Title IX or the protections that the Obama administration put in place, but what he does call for is increasing the burden of proof that universities need to have in order to find someone guilty, right?
Yeah, how crazy is it to have a high burden of proof for a serious criminal case? It's not like it's somebody's life we're talking about here or anything crazy like that.
'Cause after all, he's just a man.
Now, keep in mind, the way universities handle it is separate from the way criminal courts handle it, right? So this is really over whether or not, a student should be expelled or reprimanded or face any consequences for alleged sexual assault.
They should face no consequences for alleged sexual assault. It's a fucking allegation. They should face punishment for proven sexual assault.
There's a lot more. It's a very complex, twisty-turny story, but I want you guys to jump in.
Okay, so I think I agree with where you're going with it. So if Betsy DeVos said, hey, listen, of course we have to take it into account and address sexual assault and rape on college campuses, of course. But some small fraction of cases are false accusations, and I say that because that's a fact. It's about 2 to 10% of accusations are false, according to the people who keep stats on it. Okay, so but it exists. So let me go meet with one of these groups, and then I would pick the group that is the least crazy.
They don't exist, unfortunately.
Well, I hear you on that. That's right.
Yeah, any group that advocates for men's rights is automatically bad, always. You're a bunch of fuckheads, you know that.
But so I wouldn't pick one that was on the Southern Poverty Law Center's list of groups that are misogynistic.
Seriously, I'm surprised no one's yet to propose the Southern Poverty Law Center headquarters be made some kind of holy sign that leftists can pilgrimage to all over the world.
Hey, I'm a filthy left-leaning cunt, and I think the SPLC are a bunch of wankers. Hashtag not all filthy lefties.
The one that the National Coalition for Men, their founder, I read a quote from a couple of days ago on the show when she was considering doing these meetings. He said the Ray Rice thing. He's like, I'm not blaming victim
or victim blaming.
Victim blaming, but she agitated him, and that's why he hit her.
Yeah, because stating the cause of something is the same as advocating it, you total bellend.
What? If you saw that tape, I mean.
He knocked her out.
He knocked her out and couldn't care less. And she did, like, what do you mean agitated him? It's clear victim blaming. So these are bad guys that she's meeting with.
Wow, what a bad person to suggest the victim did anything to provoke her assault. Wait a minute. Let's go back a few months and see what you said about this incident, Cenk Uygur.
Like, well, he didn't try to tell the security guard, hey, no, don't call the cops. We'll figure this thing out. You're right, wink, wink. She's drunk. But then you see that he doesn't seem to give a shit about anything anyway. He knocks her out and just looks down at her like no big deal, right? Mm-hmm. And then he drags her out like no big deal. He kind of kicks her, nudges her with his foot like no big deal. So the guy's like, when he says you want to cover it up, his reaction is nothing, like it's been nothing all along. So I don't give him any credit for that. It just seemed like he just didn't give a shit.
I get the argument that, hey, you know what, they were hitting each other. And no one in any circumstance is trying to say that it's okay for anyone in a relationship to hit the other person, regardless if the person is bigger than them, smaller than them. You shouldn't hit, right? Mm-hmm. But in a relationship where you are a larger person, you're a stronger person, doesn't matter what the gender is, doesn't matter what the sex is, you should probably try to handle the situation in a more mature way and resort to violence or resort to self-defense if you absolutely need it.
Now, as we've said all along, in this new revelations doesn't add much to it, except the one thing that I viewed to be extra information is that it confirms what it looked like in the video that she was spitting on.
Yes.
Okay, so as we've said all along, she was never right to hit him, okay? We knew they were yelling at each other anyway. She wasn't right to do that either. And she certainly wasn't right to spit on him. And if Ray Rice wanted to press charges and had not hit her back, we'd be 100% on his side.
Of course,
If
yeah.
he restrained her, we would of course understand. And the list goes on and on.
So the founder of the National Coalition for Men is a bad guy for saying pretty much the exact same thing about this case that you said. And before anyone tries to strawman me,
Aw, guess I'll put this back.
no, the fact that she hit him, the fact that she spat on him, the fact that she yelled at him does not excuse him decking her like that.
Nah, the fact that she's a woman with a face excuses it.
Obviously, what he did was wrong.
Wait, are we not doing this? Oh shit, yeah, my audience isn't 100% wife-beating scumbags. I always forget that.
The man was dead drunk, and he obviously behaved extremely irrationally in that circumstance. But saying that she provoked him seems to be collaborated with the evidence of that case. She wasn't just sitting there, she was agitating him. And that doesn't justify what he did, but it is a fact of the case, and no one's a bad guy for pointing that fact out.
If you wanted to actually address the issue and you did it in proportion to the scope of the problem, okay, all right, that makes sense. I don't want guys to be falsely accused of rape.
Yeah,
That's right.
look.
Yeah, essentially no one is talking about it, so we need to reduce that down to literally no one. Because proportions.
But we're not doing it in proportion here, and the people you're meeting with are terrible guys.
Everyone I disagree with is evil, right?
Yeah, look, the sense that I got from the way that this all went down is that, her assumption or her perspective of this is that sexual assault victims are 50% and, falsely accused are 50%.
Right.
Nice try, Anna. Betsy DeVos never said that.
So let's treat it like such, and I'll have my session with the sexual assault victims and then those who are falsely accused.
Talking about it ever is too much, right, Annie Poos?
But the reality is, look, no one wants anyone to be falsely accused, right?
I think you'll find false accusers do. Checkmate, smarm.
And it's counterproductive and devastating for everyone, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, you want to ensure that you tackle a problem that continues, to grow on college campuses.
Citation needed. Where is there any evidence that sexual assaults on campus are increasing?
And that is administrators kind of brushing these things under the rug and not dealing with them. And by the way, universities are not courts. They're not looking for criminality or to convict someone. That's for the criminal court system to decide. When it comes to universities, they have to decide whether or not it makes sense to move someone into a different dorm or expel someone.
Without any evidence, tarnishing their reputation for life because when anyone notices that change of schools and looks it up, hey, let's not employ the guy who might possibly be a rapist, even though he was cleared by the police. They wouldn't have moved him if he wasn't guilty, right?
And in the vast majority of cases, according to the data, the person who's accused of sexual assault doesn't get expelled, does not get moved to a different dorm.
Anna, did it ever occur to you that the main reason why they weren't expelled or kicked out of their dorm is because there wasn't the slightest evidence they were guilty of what they were accused of?
Yeah, I haven't made any shit jokes in a while, so here's a picture of a dog in a hat.
Do you think someone should be expelled from campus over the allegation alone?
They might get asked to take like a counseling class, but that's it. Let me go into the details on that because I thought it was super interesting.
Your mum's super interesting. Really, she is. You have her eyes, Anna.
We don't have a graphic for it, but the Washington Post looked at data at over 100 universities. And what they found was that very often, or more than often, they are not expelled from universities. Very often, they are told to take these counseling classes. But yeah, they're like, what these groups want, the men's activist groups, is
all women to be chained to sinks forever? Yeah?
They want it to be the same burden of proof necessary in criminal court. So guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And so the universities are actually saying that makes our job impossible.
Well then, maybe you should leave discerning this stuff to a specialist branch of the government that deals with crimes. I don't think anything like that exists though, so I guess universities will just have to continue doing this thing that they aren't qualified to.
Because we can't prove that.
And it's already tough to prove in criminal cases, right? Which also we also need to revise how we conceptualize burden of proof for criminal cases.
And how would you specifically want to reform the court system? It seems like you want to just reform the system that you convict guys over the mere allegation with no due process whatsoever. I know that may sound like a straw man, but with no specifics given, I don't know what else you can conclude from that statement.
They want to have it as lackluster and slapdash as a bunch of university dickheads playing courtroom drama. It's obvs, mate.
I think back to that earlier point about this conversation. You can't center men in a conversation where men are the primary perpetrators of sexual assault on campus.
Or anything ever, because men are the cause of everything bad, ever.
And I think also, you can have multiple conversations about sexual assault. Two things can be true. There can be false accusations and there can be real sexual assault.
No shit, Sherlock.
Right. But to go first and then to frame these victims as equal to other victims of sexual assault, I think is problematic.
So, look, it's a tough balancing act for universities, and if I was running the Department of Education, I would think, look, how do I make sure that universities don't brush this under the rug, and they have an incentive to, because what they don't want their universities to get a bad name, and if there's a lot of sexual assaults reported at a university, then they get a bad name, and less people apply, and it affects their funding and all that stuff.
You know what else is going to affect people coming? Lots of false accusations. I mean, shit. I wouldn't want to go to any of these universities these days. It must be terrifying. From the way it looks on the outside, every interaction with a woman could land you with a rape allegation. Better to just not bother in my book.
So I've got to stop that problem, because if someone is sexually assaulted on a college campus, we have to take it enormously seriously and make sure we get justice for that, and make sure that the victim doesn't have to face the person who did it, etc.
What did you just say, Jake? Are you saying that somebody accused of a serious crime should not be granted the right to face their accuser? Man, the Salem witch trials had more justice than this.
Right? On the other hand, when they go to actually adjudicate the case, I think beyond a reasonable doubt is too tough a standard in that context. Although I don't agree that it's too tough a standard in the criminal context. I think it's the right standard, but we could disagree about that.
They could disagree, and they would be wrong every single time. Stand your ground, brother. I know deep down there's a normal person screaming to get out, Jenk, but it's like you've forgotten that this is your news show. Hashtag save Jenk from himself.
But in the college, but at the same time, I don't want the college to say, if there's any evidence at all, the guy's gone, right? No, you have to have some real standard, and maybe it's the same standard as a civil case by a preponderance of the evidence, right? Because when you go to a criminal trial, you're taking somebody's freedom away, and on a case like rape, then you're going to go on a sex offender list, etc. I mean, that is as serious as you can possibly get. Now, removing somebody from college, ending their college career, is also super serious, but not to the same degree.
And how the hell is that, Jenk? All right, it's pretty much the same thing as putting someone on a sex offender registry. As soon as that guy tries to apply for a job, they're gonna look up, was expelled from college after a rape allegation, and he's not gonna get the job. It's gonna have the same exact stigma attached to it as being on the sex offender registry. It'll essentially ruin the man's life, Jenk. It's not something that should be so casually done in some kind of kangaroo court. And I know kangaroos are over-referenced in response videos to the Young Turks, but that's exactly what kind of court it would be.
I like kangaroos. Except the giant dude bro ones, they can go fuck themselves. Trying to steal my girl and shit.
And it's a different balancing act because you really want to protect sexual assault victims. And we have the stats. The overwhelming majority of people who accuse people of sexual assault, it actually happened. So, and you know that through the cases that have been adjudicated, etc., right? So it's not an easy balancing act.
Isn't the conviction rate like 7%? Now, I'm not saying that most accusations are or aren't true. You know why? Because I don't fucking know. And neither do you, Jenk, so how about sticking to the goddamn facts?
but you don't balance it 50-50 because that's just not the reality of what's happening on campus.
And what I'm concerned about is even as they give this appearance that they're treating the situation as 50-50, which I think we all agree is kind of unfair given the statistics, behind the scenes, they don't even treat it as 50-50. DeVos's top civil rights chief, Candace Jackson, stirred outrage Wednesday when she told the New York Times that, quote, 90% of accusations fall into the category of, we were both drunk, we broke up, and 6 months later I found myself under a Title IX investigation because she just decided that our last sleeping together was not quite right. Now, she later apologized for that statement, but I mean, you apologize because you get criticism. You said something that you honestly believed, and that's a little troublesome, so.
And here we find out that Anna Kasparian is actually a mind reader who apparently is the sole arbiter of whether an apology is sincere or not. If so, Anna, I do know the address for Professor Xavier's School for the Gifted.
Look, it's not like those cases don't exist. When I was going to school at Penn, we literally had one of those cases where somebody said 6 months later, one of the nights in our relationship, I didn't want to have sex, but we had sex, and he didn't know it. But I'm going to call it rape now. Okay. Now, I don't know all the details, and that was a long, long time ago. And maybe she had a point.
No, she didn't. If I called every time I wasn't into sex and went through with it anyway rape, then I have been raped literally hundreds of times by multiple women. You do not want to let that become the standard because it's so subjective and stupid that even bringing it up really devalues victims of actual rape. And I know that's the last thing you want to do, so cut that shit out. Come on.
But from the outside, it looked like, whoa, 6 months later, and the guy didn't even know it. So it's not like those cases don't exist. But for her to say that 90% of the accusations fall into that category is unbelievable.
It's not really any less unbelievable than when feminists claim it's less than 2% of rape charges are false when there is absolutely zero evidence to support that claim. Yet far left outlets like you repeat it as if it's gospel.
But that's their mindset, that's their perspective. It's a lot of BS. These sexual assaults don't actually happen, which is super ironic because apparently Candace Jackson's also a sexual assault survivor.
Exactly.
But having gotten no empathy, just turns around to everyone else. Is like, yeah, it happened to me, but I don't believe that it happened to you. 90% of the time, I think you're making it up. Even though the stats indicate it's the exact opposite. They're telling the truth 90 to 98% of the time.
We're against sexual assault, you dumbass! We talk about it all the time!
Keck.
Well, it was clear from this video, as well as every single one of the videos the Young Turks publish, and they publish some every couple hours or so, that they have absolutely no clue what they're talking about, and they have zero interest in representing any issue honestly, only pushing a far left slant to whatever topic they are talking about. The Young Turks are purveyors of dishonesty, and nobody who should ever take their advice on how to properly deal with the problem of sexual assaults. Thank you so much, Sir Sick, for letting me on your channel. It was great doing this collab with you.
Of course you enjoyed it. I'm amazing, tall, handsome, good at the sex, etc. But I would like to thank you for being a good sport. I would like to, but you have no idea how much of a dick I'm being because you made your part first. This 19-minute monstrosity. Do you know how much work this shit took? I kill you!
Please remember to subscribe to me at Loudmouth Reviews.
Or you could go beat him to death with sticks. Either's good.
And follow me at Twitter at Twitter handle LoudmouthR.
Aw, dude, you fucked up your Twitter handle. Come on, I thought you were a professional. I ain't fixing it.
Thanks, everybody. I hope to see you there.
Right, is he gone? Thank God. Now, what was I doing again? Yes, back to hitting myself in the face. Catch you later, cunts.